As you know, the new Massachusetts home inspector law regulation has gone into effect. It's something that I put a video out explaining it before it went into effect, but now it's in effect. So what does this mean for buyers, sellers? What does the form look like? How scary is it? How is it going to work? I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. So let's talk about whose responsibility this is and what it means. And I'm just going to do a really brief so I don't bore you. But I think it's really important that everyone knows what this means. And if you are not educated on this, ask your agent. I hope your agent is educating you on it. But I always feel that it's best to inform and equip buyers and sellers with the most amount of information so that they can make educated decisions along the way and understand the process. So this is the Massachusetts mandatory residential home inspection disclosure. It is its purpose, again, is to create an equal and level playing field for buyers so that they don't feel pressured to waive home inspections. Of course, a buyer can decide after the fact not to have a home inspection done, but it cannot be in the negotiations or alluded to or discussed at the onset of an offer. So let's take you through this form. This is the form that you should be seeing. And if you do not see it as a buyer or a seller, I would ask your agent because it protects you. It protects all of the parties involved. And the onus really is on the sellers more so. I want to make sure if you have your home listed with an agent currently after October 15th, you should have a form already signed with your agent sitting on the paperclip on MLS. Ask them about it. They will know what that means. It protects you. All of my clients, I have that already enacted so that everyone is protected. Everyone has been explained what their responsibilities are and the reasoning for it. So this form is not a very scary form. It's pretty self-explanatory. It must be signed by the buyer and seller prior to signing the first written contract to purchase. Sellers, if you do not see this submitted with an offer at the time that an offer is presented to you, your agent should kick it back and ask for this to be signed by the buyer. Buyers, if you do not get this signed by the seller and supplied to you when you are thinking about putting in an offer and you are getting ready to write the offer, I would ask your agent to get a copy. The first paragraph, the limitations on home inspection waivers, is basically stating that a seller cannot accept an offer that is contingent upon waiving or limiting or restricting the buyer's right and choice to have a home inspection. It goes on to say that the buyer should be provided a reasonable time in order to get their inspection done. Now that can be negotiated, and we'll talk about that a little bit further on in the video. The last piece of this talks about that the buyer has the discretion of whether or not to move forward with the purchase of the home based on the results and their satisfaction of the home inspection. The next portion is under seller's disclosure. This hereby acknowledges that the seller agrees that this agreement is not and will not be contingent, again, upon the waiver or limitation or the restriction of the buyer's choice to do a home inspection. It also acknowledges that the buyer may choose their home inspector, as long as it's a licensed home inspector, and also says that the buyer shall be given a reasonable amount of time or a time period to get their inspection done. Now, this portion can be negotiated. So the time in which the buyer and seller agree is reasonable for the buyer to be able to get their inspection done, that can be negotiated. The remaining portion of this disclosure form is the buyer's acknowledgement that they understand their right to have a licensed home inspector inspect the property. Also, the selling agent or the listing agent has to sign off because remember, the onus really is on the seller for this. So the listing agent needs to sign off that they have gone over the seller's obligations as it relates to this form and the disclosure and the acceptance of offers by not limiting or making a buyer waive a home inspection. So I just wanted to kind of explain it and show it firsthand of how it looks, how these changes look in paper form for buyers and sellers, because when something goes into effect, a new regulation in any industry, it can be a little bit scary. It can be, what is this going to be like? What is this going to look like? What effect is it going to have? We're certainly seeing things out there on the news that have talked about this. So I, in full transparency, always like to let my consumers, my clients, and anybody else just out there wondering what this means and what this looks like firsthand. So again, if you have any questions about this or the market in general, I'm happy to help you. I always like to try to be a resource for people, and certainly always am trying to learn the most I can in my business and in this industry so that I can be a resource for my clients.